Good morning. I'm John Ellsworth, founder of Success Strategies Incorporated and the creator of the Success Strategies Advantage. I want to welcome you to today's presentation, which I've entitled, Are You Caught in a Comparison Trap? Industry comparisons are really neat, especially when you compare to the other operations, and a lot of people do just that. And it is a good idea. In fact, I think it's a great idea, but it has some limitations that I want you to think about. Number one, is your operation identical to others in the industry comparison summary? I don't think so. Don't think that's very likely. In fact, I think it's probably very likely that your operation is quite different in many respects. So my suggestion is you can do these comparisons, but keep them in perspective. My business coach, Dan Sullivan, says, and I quote, "Amateurs compare, but professionals measure," end of quote. So what does he mean by that? I think what he's saying is we need to be careful. If you're a dairy operation using a double 12 herringbone barn to milk your herd versus a 50 stall rotary barn, which is going to be much faster and efficient, particularly in terms of labor, that's tough to make a comparison in that particular expense category of labor. So if you've got 12 employees on your operation, 12 total employees, versus the robotic guy who may have similar size operation, only 6 employees, how do you make a comparison on that? If you're in a farming operation and you farm 200 acres and start comparing with a farming operation that farms 2,000 acres, probably with bigger and better equipment, I might add, that's going to be a tough comparison. So here's a better approach possibly for you to consider. Look at your industry averages, industry comparisons, and then take one more step. I'd like you to stop, look back, and look at the most recent year's results that you've accomplished, that you've achieved, and compare with your prior 3 years. Not the industry, but your prior 3 years. In this event, I think then you will be comparing apples to apples, as the saying goes. Number one, it's going to tell you where you're making progress. And number two, you'll see some areas probably where you may be slipping backwards, or just various events or costs are working against you. And then you can focus in on trying to make improvement in those areas. Recall the terminology that I've shared with you many times in these videos about if you measure something, you can understand it. If you understand it, you can control it. And once you can control that factor or that variable, you can make improvement in that area. And it's this four-step process, the measuring, understanding, controlling, and improving, is an excellent tool for measuring your financial performance. There's absolutely nothing wrong with comparisons to the top tier of the industry. I think it's really neat if you can aspire to be in that top tier. That's great. I wish we all could be. But I think we just need to keep these comparisons in perspective. Another concept that my business coach, Dan Sullivan, has shared with us is the concept of the gap in the gain. Think about this possibility. As you're walking toward the horizon for 30 minutes, if you look forward toward the horizon, you're going to get discouraged and you go, gee, it looks like I'm making no progress. This is like comparing to the ideal, to utopia, to where you ultimately would like to be. Nothing wrong with that, but to keep it in perspective, the gap in the gain concept is that will put you in the gap where you're really depressed about what appears to be a lack of progress. But if you look backward to where you started, you'll see that in that 30 minutes of walking toward the horizon, you've probably walked 2 miles. And that is your true progress. So to summarize, look at these other industry comparisons. I think it's a great tool. There's certainly no harm in it. But also, you got to keep it in perspective and look at where you've come in your operation versus where you started. If I can assist you with measuring, understanding, controlling, and improving various aspects of your operation, please contact me. I'm happy to help. That's what we do. And when you're comparing, be sure to ask yourself, am I caught in this comparison trap? Because it's a good question to consider. Thank you for listening today. I'm John Ellsworth, founder of Success Strategies Incorporated and the creator of the Success Strategies Advantage. I want to thank you again for listening.